Hi, everyone. Today's faculty development session is about how to turn your conference abstract into a poster. This series is based on the new ACGME Clinician Educator Competencies. Today's topic will focus on the educational theory and practice competency, specifically medical education scholarship. This is a reminder that to engage in med-ed scholarship, we can start small. We all know of cases from being on service that are full of important teaching points. During our last faculty development session, Dr. Patel reviewed how to select cases to submit as a clinical vignette abstract. I'm going to review the next step in this process, which is how to turn your abstract into a visually compelling poster. We should think of conference posters as being visual teaching tools for our cases. In order for this teaching tool to be effective, though, we need to put in the time to make sure that our posters are well designed. When we show a poster that's poorly designed, it can detract from the learner's experience, and it defeats the purpose of using a visual aid in the first place. The principles of good design that I want to go over today are recognizing that less is more, making sure to not bury your lead, and reviewing how else we can visually emphasize our key points. And to illustrate these principles, I'm going to use a real-life example. Here's a poster I presented at a conference years ago on a case of ovarian vein thrombosis. There's a lot with the layout that I could have done a better job at. So let's start applying our design principles to make this poster more effective. The first principle is recognizing that less is more. Here I'm specifically talking about the amount of text, not counting the title, author information, and references. There's almost 750 words on my poster. When we give our learners walls of text to read, we significantly increase their cognitive load and can make it really hard to retain the information. How can we do better? Well, instead of paragraphs, write your text out in bullet points, since this is much more reader-friendly. Also, think of ways you can communicate the same written information visually. For example, instead of writing the hospital course out in a paragraph, we can use something like the Smart Art feature in PowerPoint as a more visually appealing alternative to show how the case progressed. The second principle is to not bury your lead. Journalists are taught to not bury the lead or headline when they write their stories. We should also abide by this on our posters. Abstract submissions will often ask you to distill your case into a couple teaching points. These teaching points are the most important message of your case, so you should be sure to highlight it on your poster. On my poster, you can see that even though I created a separate section for my learning points, they otherwise don't visually stand out. One way we can make sure the headline stands out more is by simply creating more space for it. One example of how we can do this is the Better Poster template that was created by Mike Morrison. Here, we devote a large chunk of our poster to the main finding. This strategy is simple, yet it helps to visually communicate to our audience that they should pay extra attention to these words. The last tip is to remember simple tools we can use to further emphasize what's important. Some examples include bolding your key words, putting them in a brighter color, or sometimes even combining two strategies. The key here is to not overdo it, or else the tools start losing their impact. Let's go back to my poster and start applying these principles in a stepwise fashion. First, we can cut out a lot of our text by condensing the paragraphs into bullet points. We can also convert most of the clinical course into a smart art By doing so, we've significantly cut down our word count while still keeping the essential elements of the case. Next, let's borrow the concept from the Better Poster template, where we devote the majority of our poster space to our headline, which are the learning objectives. Since I felt the CT image showing the clot was also important, I'm going to include it in this space as well. Finally, I want to further emphasize some of the key words within the learning objectives. To do that, I'm going to make them a different color. I'm going to take that same yellow to also frame my CT image to help it pop out more from my background. So in summary, I hope this session has inspired you all to pay more attention to the design in your future posters, because better design really leads to better teaching.